It's now time to take a look at what's going on in the French press this Tuesday. Elena Casas joins me in the studio. Hello to you, Elena. So what have we got on the front pages today?
Hello again, Rebecca. Well, the UNESCO's decision to allow the Palestinians full membership has made lots of front pages this morning. If we look here at Le Figaro, they've got the anger of Israel again, over the entry of Palestine into UNESCO as a front page. Now, you'd kind of expect them to put a pro-Israeli perspective forward. It's a right-wing paper, and they do, of course, say there's no such state as Palestine, and agencies like UNESCO should be dealing in science rather than science fiction. They also say that it won't help Palestinians on the ground anyway. They're trying to create a reality that just doesn't exist. But if we have a look then at Libération, though, they've got a rather different point of view. They say, yes, this might not help Palestinians, but if you like, it's not exactly their fault. The US has been forced by their own law to pull out now of UNESCO, and that could, of course, create a snowball effect if they put themselves forward to join more other UN agencies. US law would also force the US to pull out, and that could actually backfire quite badly on Mahmoud Abbas and the Palestinians, according to Libération, because he's made an effort to build a good relationship with the Obama government. So if then his own diplomatic tack forces them to kind of reduce their role in international diplomacy, it could play out badly for them.
So it could actually set a kind of malevolent precedent. And lots of papers looking at the economy, of course.
Yes, particularly actually at the question of what China is going to do to help out the euro and what they may be getting from it if they do bail out those struggling eurozone countries. Rue 89, the French website, has an interesting look at this. They say there's lots Beijing could be getting from it. They could get an end to an arms embargo on selling European arms to Beijing that's been in place since Tiananmen Square in 1989. They could get an end to international pressure on them to reevaluate the yuan, which of course is widely believed to be undervalued. They could, of course, they need to preserve their best export market. They sell most of their products to Europe, so they don't want those economies collapsing. They want to shore them up, and they want to reduce their own dependency on the dollar. Of course, they've bought so much US debt that Beijing is virtually propping up the US deficit at the moment, but they haven't got much back from the US in exchange for that. They're all kind of Chinese attempts to take over US companies have been blocked by Congress. A number of them have. So they're hoping European governments are going to be more willing to sell off assets and allow Chinese consortia to take them over.
So China looking for a bit more leverage power, as it were, here in Europe. And it's not just in Europe, actually, where China is investing.
Yes, on the same website, Rue 89, they say that China is buying up Algeria. Of course, they've got huge amounts of investments across Africa, which we rarely report on, unfortunately. But in Algeria, apparently, they've got hotels, dams, train companies, even the construction of the Grand Mosque in Alger. But that's not necessarily a good thing for Algerians. They say, firstly, these Chinese companies have brought 30,000 workers with them, so they're not necessarily creating local jobs. And they're also bringing an influx of Chinese-made products, which is kind of destroying the Algerian, what's produced at home, things like clothes, because they're cheaper. And they also accuse the Chinese companies of supporting corruption. According to Rue 89, Chinese firms have paid 200 million euros worth of bribes to Algerian authorities.
And often stories about Chinese companies investing in roads and then only building half of them. There always seems to be some kind of tension around that. There's lots more miserable economic news here in France as well. What have you got there in Le Monde?
Here in Le Monde, they focus on begging. If we have a look at their article on the inside, they talk about the rise in begging across France and the rise in people being arrested for begging, which is, of course, slightly pointless, because if people are begging on the street and eating in soup kitchens, they probably can't pay a €38 fine. They also, though, take a look at the role of organised crime in begging in France. Apparently, one Bosnian-run syndicate is responsible for 75% of all the robberies on Paris's metro, mostly young girls who at least tell police that they're under 13, which is the age of criminal responsibility in France, and police just haven't managed to break that network.
And just extremely briefly, Elena, you've got something a little bit less bleak for us. Some colourful coffins.
Yes, it's the Day of the Dead today, All Saints' Day here in France. We've got quite a lot of stories about death in today's papers. Here on the front page of Le Parisien, we've got people designing their own coffins, and inside they've asked people how they would like to have their funeral. Perhaps not the nicest question to be asked in the street, but lots of people have interesting suggestions, including one guy who wants Dancing Queen played on a loop during his.
So really we should be planning ahead. Thank you for taking us through the French press, Elena Casas there.